on social media online, then there's sunlight. This is the number, the size of the numbers. There's the biggest one to the size. So everything is now basically the more palatable that goes for
Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our extremely talented musician, Anna Janelle. She's going to be playing music. She's going to be playing us through the day today, and she also has some CDs for sale, just to deal with that. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome Joe Rania of Rank, developer of the Nova Centre, to welcome us into a conversation today.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for coming today. We are here to listen to you. This is the third session on the road. On Monday we were in Sydney. Yesterday we were in Glasgow. And today we're here. So we have been listening. We have been learning. It's one thing, it's nice to see that there's consistency in what we've been hearing from the sessions we've heard in Halifax, the session we've heard in Sydney, and yesterday. It seems to be layering with some differences on what people from outside Halifax would like to see. And there is differences, and we're listening to those differences. So we want to welcome you, and we'll listen, and I want to bring you up to date as we get, as we get going on what the project is, and highlight some areas, and listen to what you have to say.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for coming.
So I'm Rachel. I'm part of the public engagement collective that has been going in Halifax and throughout Nova Scotia to host these events. And I'm with a group called CoLab, and we do primarily creative engagement. So my role in this project so far has been going out on the streets in Halifax and engaging people on their ideas. And we have local musicians and live artists that have been drawing and painting the ideas and putting them up on the fences around the site downtown to really surface public opinion, really like on the street kind of way. And this is Tim Mary with Miriam Inc. So he's been helping with the overall design of the sessions, the public engagement campaign, and hosting the public engagement. This is Marguerite Bescher of Brave Space, our artist in residence, and she's our graphic facilitator. So listens to what's being said and helps to draw and show the different patterns and the different themes that are coming out of the conversations, so we can start to see that collective intelligence that's present in the rooms that we're engaging. We've got Craig Moore with Spider Video behind the video camera there. He's been live streaming all of the events so that people who can't show up in the room can actually participate online. There's an online record on our website of all the engagements so far, and these documents that you see on the tables, just what has been said so far, what is the public saying that they want to see in this development. And the website is BuildYourCentre.ca, and we have Twitter and the Facebook set up and all of that. So, as Joe said, we've been on the road with provincial engagements. We started with 2 engagement sessions in Halifax, and then we went to Sydney, Cape Breton, we've gone to Glasgow, and we're here today in Truro. We'll be going to Wolfville and Lunenburg. And the purpose of these provincial engagements is thinking about, we have this building that's going on downtown. It's going to be a huge development in downtown Halifax, probably the largest development in Nova Scotia since the 1970s. And it will have these waves of influence and impact across the province. So we want to ask you your input on that, and open this relationship, this conversation between things that happen in Halifax's downtown and the rest of the province. There's 2 main areas for input. The first is around the actual design of the building. So what's the look and feel of the building? What's the public space like? How do we want this building to represent the culture, the life of Nova Scotia? People will be coming there from around the world. So what do they see when they get there? And when we travel from around the province to Halifax, what kind of spaces do we want in that downtown? And the other area for influence is really around the economic development, the economic opportunities that the Nova Centre, but specifically the Convention Centre, can offer to the province. So how can this Convention Centre, where again, many people come from around the world, how can it be a springboard for people to learn where to go in Nova Scotia and what to do and how to buy local products and what kind of projects or partnerships or services would be really helpful that the province, the government, the convention center can provide to help make those economic opportunities possible. Great. Oh yeah, so today. What are we doing today? Welcoming, that's happening now. We're going to do a little check-in where just turn to somebody at your table and start digging in a little bit around a question that we'll pose to you in a few minutes. We're going to hear some presentations from Joe on the development from Scott Ferguson at the Trade Center and from Stephen Doyle. Coyle. From Rural and Economic Development. You're with the Tourism Department. Great. So we'll get some facts and figures to help inform our conversation and set the context for it. And then we're going to break out into some focus groups around a few particular areas where you'll have a lot of opportunity for input. So today we'll have about a half hour of us talking to you, but the meat of it will be you talking to each other and sharing back, so you can really gather a lot of brilliance from your ideas and conversations. So this is the purpose overall of the public engagement campaign. Why are we engaging? So we're trying to create a highly responsive and participatory interface between decision makers, the stakeholders, and the public. That's the work that we're doing as a public engagement collective in any project we do. How can we be lessening that gap between decision makers and people that are influenced by those decisions? Here's a timeline of the engagements that we've had so far. So starting in July, we actually engaged some stakeholders to help us design this whole engagement campaign. How do Nova Scotians want to be engaged? We had a town hall meeting where people came and just said anything about that they wanted to about the convention center, the Nova Center. We just heard all the perspectives that we could. And then later we had a vision and principles gathering where we really started to dig into what are people's visions for the design of the building, the public space, the look and feel of it. What are the design principles that Joe and his architect can take forward as they create the first concepts? So the design right now, it's a blank slate. We're taking public input, and that will be what informs the design. And now we're on this provincial engagement tour. So they said Sydney to Glasgow, Truro today, September 12th in Wolfville, the 19th in Lunenburg. And then we'll be back into the city again for 3 more engagements between October and December. So on October 3rd, we're going to be showing some of the first drawings that have come out from the public engagement, drawings of the building, public space. And with that engagement, we focused really on the streetscape level, and then an engagement on the public space, and then the last engagement on November 21st will be on the convention center itself. So you're very welcome to spread the word and to come out to those engagements as well.
Or join online if you can't get there.
Absolutely. And then in December we'll have a launch of the building and the design will be done. Yeah. Tim, would you?
Well, maybe just to say one thing, if you're familiar with our engagements before, we did the work around the Halifax Central Library, and so this is a slightly different engagement process than what we went through with the library. So when you say blank slate, it's not like the blank slate we have with the Central Library, where it's like, here's the building, let's build it from the ground up together, you know? That's not where we're at. So there's particular things that are in place around this building. We know there's going to be a very large convention center in there. We know there's going to be a financial tower. We know there's going to be a large hotel. We know there's going to be retail space. We know there's going to be, right? So it's a different kettle of fish, but there are specific things we can influence, which is why it's worth going out and engaging. So it's exciting to be doing that, and I mean, maybe it's worth saying that the developer's obligation was for one engagement session, one,
in the city,
and we have including the stakeholder in the city of Halifax, and with the stakeholder engagement, you know, we have a total of 12 engagements for the public to engage with, let alone the street engagement that is going on, and all of the online engagement that, you know, Craig here and some folks at MTNL are helping us with through Facebook and Twitter and all the other ways that people engage right now. So we've tried to be as comprehensive as possible in terms of giving people an access to give input to the project. Great. So the invitation out really is just to turn to your neighbour and around the question of what's been your best experience of an urban development making a positive impact across the region. So this isn't going to be a long conversation, just 3 to 5 minutes maybe. And the purpose of doing this is we want our conversations today to be rooted in reality, right? We wanted it to be rooted in our experience of what we know works. right? And so we want to avoid us being in our latest theory of urban development, or whatever else it is we might be cooking up. So just a short conversation with your neighbor around, okay, so what is your best experience of an urban development making a positive impact across a region? Doesn't have to be in Nova Scotia, doesn't have to be in Canada. Could be wherever you've lived in the world, or a story you've heard from a mate who lives in Copenhagen, I don't mind, right? But what's your experience? What's the real experience we have, so the conversations we have today are rooted in reality, they're not rooted in either hearsay or just opinion, right? So that's just 3 to 5 minutes to touch in. If you're sitting next to someone you know, feel free to stand up and find someone you don't. And if you'd rather not do that, that's totally fine too. Great, so you'll hear back from us in 3 to 5 minutes just to hear how you're doing.
All right, so we can come back together and hear a couple different ideas or perspectives or stories that came up. Anyone who wants to share, just feel free to go for it.
Any stories, any examples from your own experience? Please.
I was bringing up the Bell Centre in Montreal, being a downtown after the forum. They had to decide whether or not to go outside or stay downtown where people were accustomed to. In Montreal, people were used to the idea that that was where their Montreal Canadians played. Let's try and build it where they know best to come and see it,
right,
rather than send them to some other part.
Right.
So the Bell Centre, as they grew into that, and the forum disappeared, is much like what you're trying to do in Halifax. It's a probably good example of it, I would think.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
Staying in Montreal, I think it's the Atwater Market. There's a couple, and I get them mixed up. But you know, it's not a huge building or development, but it's an urban development that definitely impacts the region. And I give the specific example of the development over the last 10 years of a real artisanal cheese making industry across Quebec. So it was a partnership with government who loosened up some regulations around raw milk and different things, and then put some money into marketing so that farmers from across, and artisan cheesemakers from across the province could develop these products. And Montreal was the main market, and specifically one store called the Fromagerie in Atwater Fromagerie, specialized in Quebec cheese, and that has had an absolute positive impact economically across the region, centered in Montreal, where there's generally, I think, a more recognized appreciation of the urban rural dependency as opposed to us and them.
Right, thank you.
So about an hour and a half away from Montreal, we talked a bit about the role that Foord Market plays in Ottawa as being the main pedestrian thoroughfare in the downtown core, where, you know, everyone knows your name, so to speak, but you have a variety of different shops and services. You can meet up with your friends at a pub or a bar or a nice restaurant. You can get a haircut, you can buy your fruits and vegetables. So it's that kind of vibe that I think builds a positive vibe about a city's culture and, to your point, the things that we're good at.
That's great. Anyone else?
I'll just throw in, I just made the thought thinking internationally of visual icons, so like Statue of Liberty or the Sydney Opera House in Australia, like so the impact that those developments have had on those places, that they become iconic and you connect them with a place which potentially could be something similar to Nova Scotia having that strong, or Halifax having that strong visual icon of a place. You can be far across the world, but still be aware of, hey, I recognize that's the CN Tower or whatever, you know what I mean, that you're connected with this place.
Absolutely. Yeah, like there's something about that iconic nature of the building and having a place where people know to go, and what kind of policies could be shifted to make it really a hub for the region. It's the kind of building that's going to end up being on postcards of Nova Scotia and on the fronts of newspapers, and people around the world, or at least across Canada, are going to see a picture of this development when it's happening and be like, oh, that's Nova Scotia. I think that's one of the real core reasons why it's important for us to engage in the conversations that we're going to have today. But what is that? What about Nova Scotia can we put into this building that really makes us feel proud of where we are and feel like we can represent our culture in it? I think there's, sure.
No, I was just going to say, with regard to the Opera House, though, it's not only just the wonderful building, the outstanding design, which fits right in with the harbour, with the sails, and extremely wonderful design, but people come not just for that, but they come for the culture. It has brought opera to the people, and so people come from all over Australia and all over the world for the performances, which are world class. So I was kind of hoping that this convention would encourage some kind of performances of that nature, an operatic kind of a setup that would allow for those kinds of performances. But it would have to have a visual impact that would be fitting with the Nova Scotian culture and heritage somehow. And that's not going to be easy for a designer, but it would be nice.
Thank you. So I think it would be a great time now to hear a bit more. Oh yeah, perfect segue to hear more from Joe, more of the context of the building, a little bit of content about what is the Nova Centre. It's more than just a convention center, and what's the thinking that's behind it so far.
Okay. Most people have only heard of the convention center as being kind of what we're building. The Nova Centre is much bigger than just a convention center. The Nova Centre is a 1 million square feet of mixed-use development. At the anchor of it is the convention center, but another major part is the financial center that we're looking at establishing, which is an industry that the government of Nova Scotia has been working with for many years, and we have quite a few companies have come and already settled in Nova Scotia. We know that it makes sense, and we're talking to some major companies that want to come working in Nova Scotia. So that's an industry that we're working with, which hopefully will keep our kids, when they graduate, stay in Nova Scotia rather than we subsidize them, we subsidize their education, and then we send them away to work somewhere else. Another major part is the convention hotel, residential, higher end retail, food and entertainment, and underground parking that will help the city where people can come and park and walk around the city. Another major part of it is the public space that will be offered there, which we hope, and that's part of the things we want to get your input on, that will connect. How can we bring Nova Scotians together? Right now there seems to be a divide. There's Halifax as being the capital city, and then the rest of the province that's out there. How can we bring us to work together as a province? And because I believe we'll be much stronger if we can work together as a province. So this public space, the vision we have for it is how can it connect all of Nova Scotians together? If something's happening in Sydney, it could be piped in and people in Halifax could be enjoying it at the same time. It could, we heard from Sydney, and yesterday, how we can use that where they can feature who they are and what they offer, so people when they come, not only from outside Canada or from the US or Nova Scotian or Haligonian, what is Cape Breton like? What is Truro has to offer? There's many people that live in Halifax, they probably haven't been to Truro, they haven't been to Sydney. So we would like to take that public space and see how we can connect it, to create a connect between Nova Scotians from all over the province. So that's the elements of the Nova Centre. You've probably heard a lot that this project's been government subsidized, there's government money in it. From our part, this is all the whole development. The Nova Centre, totally, including the convention center, is privately financed and privately funded, and the risk goes to the developer. What the government is doing is taking a lease for the convention center. That's basically the relationship that we have with them. We weren't involved with the business case. We were only replied to an RFP that was put out by the government, and we happened to win that RFP, and now they're a tenant. So basically, it is private money, it is private risk. What else can I tell you?
You missed that slide. Do you want to say something? This
Yeah,
that was a good line.
This will be the largest green development in Atlantic Canada. We are trying to achieve LEED Gold, which is a very high standard that will be the most energy efficient and green building that's been built in Atlantic Canada. So it's very, very important. We hope that this building also, we know this building will be a catalyst for economic growth. There will be tons of jobs, which will allow the government to kind of speak about how many jobs that will create tax revenue, entertainment. And like I said, most importantly, it will be a gathering place for people from not only Nova Scotia, but from all over the world. It is located at the heart of the financial and entertainment district. We talked about that. We hope that this, what we've been hearing every session we went to is we want this building to be iconic. We want it to be different. We want it to be the postcard that says, what are we Nova Scotian, and what do we represent? We hope from all the sessions that we're able to have this building and also the convention center represent, where we've been, who we are today, and where are we going. That's another thing that we'd like to hear from you today is what do you want the center, especially the convention center, to say about us as Nova Scotia? What is the story that we wanted to tell? Because when people come in from outside, they're interested in who we are and what we are. So we're very much interested, what do you want the story that you want this convention center to say? It's very important. Go ahead. So you've talked about the the consultations. So we were obligated to do one. We're doing 12, and we're happy to do it. We believe we are learning. I mean, every time we meet, we learn something new, and it adds to and improves what we're doing. Our architect, he listens, and at the visioning session, we gathered even people's notes so he can kind of look at them. He came back, he was very excited. So we are learning from these sessions, so it's been a big help. So your input will influence the design. We are starting not necessarily from a completely blank sheet of paper, but almost. We know we have to have certain heights to make this building financially work. We know we have tendencies that require certain things. We know the convention center requires certain sizes in order for it to work. But from a look, the feel, the viewpoint of view, we are going to look to you to tell us. And we've been hearing lots of good stuff. We're really excited about what this could be. So we'll listen to what you have to say today. We'll answer whatever questions. Again, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Should I do this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So we've done a certain amount of engagement already, and both online, on the street, and then the 2 events that we've done. So what you see here is a little visual that was done by some of the folks who've been looking after the social media and online side of things. So this shows some of the key themes that have come out online. So there's the call for friendly sidewalks. There's been a lot of focus around performance space. It's funny that you mentioned it today. There's a big cry around green space, not just environmentally sound, but also in terms of integrating trees and grass and flowers. So it's visually somehow integrates nature into it, and then obviously the type of food and retail and vendors that are there. So there's been lots coming up. Also on the tables here, you can see the vision and principles. In this is captured verbatim what the public has been telling us. So you can see the kind of input here. We're not messing with it. It's all basically put directly. It's up on the website, so you can go watch it if you want to get further up to date. So that just gives you some sense of the kind of things, the kind of direction that the conversation is already going. And so Noel, who's the architect, has already been exploring and how does this building meet the street in such a way that it invites people in rather than drives them away. Nobody wants a great big concrete wall on the side of their street. It's not inviting, right? So what does that look like? So this is all being integrated into the design. For me, it was quite remarkable when Joe, Noel and I sat down last week and we went through all of these documents together and we're like, what are the patterns that are emerging? I think when October 3rd rolls around, I think we're all going to be surprised by how much of the public voice is being integrated into the design of this building. I think it's going to be exciting. So we'll just take you straight into conversation now.
But first.
Yes, but first.
We want to switch tables.
Ooh,
now, so
that's
we
good.
get as many perspectives and people meeting as possible, so we really get the brilliance.
And it'd be nice to have possible, between 3 and 4 people at a table is perfect number so that everybody gets heard. And when it gets above that, you end up struggling for time and turns everybody. So please switch up, sit with people who maybe you don't know.
Maybe you didn't talk to.
Or you haven't talked to for a while, you know everybody. If that's the case, Oh, I haven't seen you for a couple of weeks, that's good too. So just to focus your conversation here. Obviously, whatever you're doing now is exactly the right thing to be doing, which I imagine is introductions. It's always good to meet each other before you start talking. And then there's, how can the building reflect a compelling vision for all of Nova Scotia? So I just want to be clear, the word iconic is turning up a lot. It's turning up a lot, and it's turning up a lot everywhere. And so for me, that's not quite enough. What do we mean when we say iconic? Well, how do we create a building that if it does turn up on a postcard or it does turn up in a newspaper, how does it actually reflect who we are as Nova Scotians? How can it be something that Ray said, that we're proud of? Joe and Noel want to build a building that Nova Scotians are proud of. What's the information we can give them that's going to really help them do that?
I presume
Right.
you've been talking to Nova Scotia Marketing Division and tourism, because
Yeah.
we just had a strategy meeting
Yeah.
that talked about
Icons. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I hope whatever is chosen for this building is in line with tourism.
Yeah. No, their public, some of their public engagement work is connected to what we're
Yes.
doing here as well. So yeah, absolutely. So we'll throw it over to the tables. It's yours.
And
Go
before
back
we
10 minutes.
begin,
Oh.
just a little bit of a reminder how everyone's experienced a good conversation before. We know how to be in good conversation. Let's be thinking about that as we're talking to each other. If you notice that you're the only one speaking at your table, maybe step back and invite the others to speak. And if someone at your table hasn't said a word yet, kindly invite them into the conversation. Thank you. Okay. How can this building reflect a compelling vision for all of Nova Scotia?
Here, please just go for it. Yes. From a tourism point of view, we had put down regarding Nova Scotia's marketing campaign to be in line with whether it's My Nova Scotia or to have it as a marketing tool for the other destination areas outside of Halifax. So people, when they come to the new Nova Centre or to Nova Scotia for the very first time, have the opportunity to really get a feel for our culture, our heritage, our other key attractions or our destinations, and hopefully book a trip back.
And we heard that in Sydney, there was someone there from Destination Sydney, and she was saying how all the destinations across the province need to start working together, and possibility for partnerships. That's great. Anybody else?
We thought maybe the Nova Scotia brand, quote unquote, includes the unique part of it, people.
Mm.
When people come to Nova Scotia from away, when they're leaving, they often, they may comment on what a lovely historic city, but it's always, I met somebody, I had a beer with, somebody pulled out a guitar. It's that people connection, and so this place needs to make that happen.
That's it.
Facilitate that happen.
Yeah.
People connecting with people.
That's what got me to move here from England, was I went hitchhiking around Nova Scotia when I was 27.
And people were
and I was
nice.
just blown away. I was like, this place has got what is no longer available in England.
Yeah.
When I grew up, it's still here. And that's why I moved my family here, to raise them. Amazing. It's great to hear.
One or two more ideas?
We talked about, I guess, the obvious tie-in with Nova Scotia's heritage, ships, sailing, shipbuilding, shipping routes, all of those things.
Showcasing our history.
Yeah.
Building that looks like a ship.
Right?
Building that looks like a ship.
Triangular glass or white tile.
Especially with the shipbuilding contract that we just got.
Yeah.
But the interior is definitely reflecting all of the people, the First Nations, the African Canadians, the Scottish, the Irish, the French. It's got to be all the decoration internally.
Different languages was something we heard yesterday too. Was like how can the interior reflect the different languages of Nova Scotia? Great.
Great.
Anyone burst in before we kind of cut it and move to the next thing? Don't want to cut anybody off. Marguerite, can you just do a quick little summary for us while I flip to the slides for Scott and Stephen?
Yeah. So the things that are coming forward here are around tourism, reflecting our culture and heritage. So heritage is actually in a few of these, but kind of the tourism, the campaign, the brand of Nova Scotia. There's something here about reflecting our heritage, but also bringing in the future and innovation. So there's some kind of tension or holding of both of those things here. And also connecting with the existing heritage buildings downtown. The people, and including all of the people of Nova Scotia and their languages and culture. And a theme around shipbuilding, sailing, and how those kind of design elements could come into the building and be reflected. And then there's another one here that, honestly, I can't read. But the building must connect on all.
So I think that was our table.
Yeah.
We were talking about how the building has to interact with people coming and going, drawing them in on the street and exiting out.
Great.
Great.
So that kind of interactivity, or
We use the analogy of Times Square. You go to New York, even if you have no idea, but you just go to Times Square because it's interesting in and of itself.
And there's bound to be stuff happening.
There's bound to be something interesting happening.
Right.
So it's
Totally. That's right.
And it is the iconic place that you need to go just because you got to go. And we think this could be that.
Cool.
Thank you. Great.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, great. So we're going to have two short presentations now before we dig into some breakout groups this afternoon. Excuse me. So first we have from Scott of the Trade Center. So we'll give you some more context around the convention center and the possibilities, the economic possibilities that would create for all of Nova Scotia with this downtown Halifax development. And then we'll hear from Stephen from a tourism job creation perspective.
Yeah, and we're very deliberately trying to give you just enough information so that when we get into debate and conversation with each other, it's well informed. Like, what's some of the information that could inform and make the debates even more useful in terms of getting output? So it's great these guys have taken the time to come up and give us some of that.
Thank you. And I only have 3 slides. I'm not going to go through a great deal of detail. My name is Scott Ferguson. I'm CEO of Trade Center Limited. I've been in this business a long time. I've been CEO for the last 3 years, and I've spent a lot of time over that 3-year period speaking to Nova Scotians on this project. And I'm really excited with the discussion in and around the people side of it, because I think traditionally folks have an idea of what a convention center it is. And I think in many cases it's very much an old style concept of people in suits that get together to do business. And really it's not. It's really the people business. You know, I look at this as attracting people from around the world, bringing them to our province, connecting them with Nova Scotians, and doing what we can to extract and push those benefits throughout the entire province. So it is a vehicle to connect people. And I love the idea of this convention center being part of an overall cluster, because I see it as a proper starting point. It's a point where, first of all, Nova Scotians, and hopefully eventually when we get there, Atlantic Canadians, will view this city and this complex as their complex. And they'll visit it, and they'll work there, and they'll entertain there, and they'll be there. So they'll meet many Nova Scotians. So on any given day, you will see Nova Scotians conducting their business and going about their day-to-day lives in and around the center. At the same time, we overlay it with a great deal of international, national delegates. And I think it's a chance to connect with them as well at the same time. And then if we do our job properly, which I know we will, it's a matter of working with Nova Scotians across the province to make sure that these benefits flow far outside the region. So this complex is part of a cluster of activity. which I think gets us started off at the right point. It is $164 million of public money that is committed to this development to ensure that this project happens, and I think it's well placed because, to Joe Ramey's point earlier, is the rules of engagement are clearly set here. These are public dollars directed to leasing space to ensure that we have access to this convention center for 25 plus years into the future. It allows me to focus on what I do well, which is, and I think I do well with my team, is to make sure that we attract and we fill this complex on a daily basis, and it allows the developer to focus on what he does well, to deliver a project with very clear timelines and specifications on the building. And they have that ready for us in 2016. So I think the nature of the partnership is a good, strong one, and I think it gets us off on the perfect foot. It's going to be LEED Gold, of course, which I think will have us stand out both nationally and internationally, and it will contain 120,000 square feet of rentable space that we will be able to use for many purposes, including conventions, meetings, and entertainment and other activity. The next thing I want to just touch a little bit on is the Canadian snapshot of this business. I think we've done a lot of good things in Canada. One, we talk about the banking and financial sector, but another thing I think we've done well is the convention business. We have built this industry in and around a series of regional centers. So we're not the US, we're not Spain and other countries where they've built literally hundreds of these convention centers, each competing with for these meetings. In Canada, we have less than 20 major convention centers. Probably a dozen of those are considered to be regional centers. And the Canadian business is very stable. The National Association business, whether or not it's the medical, the doctors, the lawyers, the engineers, we meet on an annual basis no matter what is happening in the economy. Those meetings rotate east, west, central. We get a good share of that. It's a very stable business, and it allows for us to have a very diversified business mix. The Conference Board of Canada analyzed this business several years ago, and they have identified over $14 billion a year that is generated in meetings and conventions across Canada. Over 550,000 jobs across the country come from this business, and over 600,000 meetings a year. So this conventions business is very much an economic development business, and it's a stable one in this country, and this center will allow us to take an even larger share of that. The last point I want to make is that even though there are fewer convention centers, they have all been expanding and growing steadily over the last 20 years. And we're well aware of the wonderful facility in Vancouver, certainly Ottawa, opening up Niagara Falls. In Atlantic Canada, there's been smaller expansions as well. The convention center we now operate is the same space we used in 1985. It does not allow us to host multiple meetings. It allows us to host one meeting at a time, and that's the challenge. If it's a 200-person conference or a 1,000-person conference, you get to do one of those. And to be successful in this business, you need to be able to host local, regional business. You need to be able to host multiple national, international business at the same time. And that's what this facility will allow us to accomplish. We did review the existing footprint we have to see if we could expand on the site. That's clearly impossible with the amount of land and space that we have. And we have measured our lost business, and we have lost over 100 conferences since 2007. There are 100 international, national conferences that have tried to book this city, and we're not able to because of the space that we had. So my view is the business case of this is very strong, the potential is very strong, and we're very excited to be part of this overall complex. I know there's benefits, and certainly many economic ones that Steve will speak to in a few moments, and we'll get into some of those discussions, but I just wanted to address those 3 points, and happy to have a discussion with anyone post this meeting today, or I will look forward to coming back actually and speaking in more detail on some aspects of this. So, thank you.
Stephen.
Thanks. Just I'm going to take 5 minutes to talk about the economic and tourism opportunity around the center, and hopefully that will get people thinking about how the benefit from that development can spread throughout the province.
Can you just say who you are in the department?
Just about to.
Oh, wicked, look at that.
Just I was so excited to share my goal for the so as Rachel mentioned, Stephen Coyle with Economic and Rural Development and Tourism, and I'm the manager of tourism research. So that's my role. So we do visitor surveys, economic analysis, and so on. Yeah, so just a quick overview. I'm going to talk about the business case for the development, what the economic and tourism opportunities are for the center, and then briefly at the end talk about how this development fits into the long-term tourism strategy that Joyce was referring to. So. All right, in terms of the construction alone is going to generate almost $10 million in provincial government revenues. And that's as Joe mentioned, this is part of a much bigger development. This is the convention center alone. So about $10 million in provincial government revenue, tons of employment, almost 1,000 person years of direct employment. In terms of operating, in the first 10 years of operation, the center is going to generate $85 million in provincial tax revenues, and the incremental tax benefit is $40 million. So Scott talked about conventions and events that we currently aren't able to host. By building the center, we're going to grow the economic benefit by $40 million in terms of taxes alone. So the impacts are flow into all areas of the economy: food services, logistics, event hosting, all aspects of the tourism industry. A bit about the tourism dynamic around conventions. So when we attract visitors to Halifax to conventions, about half of them are going to extend their stay to see other parts of the province. So about 50% will stay on and experience, add a pleasure component to their trip to Halifax or trip to the province. The economic benefit is very clear. Convention delegates spend twice as much as other visitors to the province. So $200 per day average spending versus just under $100 for our average visitor. So there's clearly an economic opportunity. There's an opportunity to grow that spending even more by engaging visitors and having them experience more of the province. All right, just a quick from some of our visitor surveys. This demonstrates how our convention visitors are already experiencing the rest of the province. So Fundy and Annapolis Valley, for example, 19% of our convention visitors to Halifax are visiting that part of the province. So Shore, 17%, Northumberland Shore, 16%, and they're visiting all parts of the province, not quite as much in Cape Breton, Eastern Shore, and Yarmouth, but they are spreading out, fanning out throughout the province. So that's a significant benefit currently. There's an opportunity to grow that even more by using the Nova Centre to inspire people to visit, whether it's in their current trip or come back and experience the province in the future. Okay, so the Nova Scotia Tourism Agency, industry partners, and government are currently consulting with Nova Scotians to develop a 5-year tourism strategy, and that strategy is going to be shared at the annual tourism conference in late November. So currently we know that the long-term strategic goals have already been set, focused on the visitor, attract more visitors, increase their spending while they're here, and encourage them to stay longer, to build, focusing on benefiting the industry and the economic benefit from those visitors. So improve overall tourism industry profitability. And the convention, the Nova Centre development clearly ties into the long-term tourism strategy, and these are 3 examples of how that's happening. So improve access to key tourism assets and experiences throughout the province, encourage convention visitors to experience the entire province, and inspire them to return in the future. And focus on partnerships, which we heard about earlier, to attract more visitors and showcase the province and its residents. So. All right.
Thank you. Scott, you want to close us out?
I find this section actually to be the most exciting part of all of this, frankly. Traditionally we've always measured conferences and meetings on the spends, and we're very good at that. I think in the future we need to get better at measuring a lot of these other benefits that we know are there. And I think we talk about this business, I refer to this business as the simplest form of community or economic development there is available to us today. It is simply, as I mentioned earlier, the people business. It's about attracting people from around the world. And when you're attracting a major conference, it could be biomagnetic engineering or biomarine, whatever it happens to be, you are bringing the biggest, the best thinkers, the investors, the researchers. You are the world capital for that topic for an entire week. And so you sit on the top of the world for that topic. And you know 3 years out that that's going to happen. And you have those 3 years to work with communities across the province as well as through various sectors to make sure that you just don't put the best event on, that you extract every benefit that you possibly can. Now in some cases that could be simply just pre and post travel and around the conference itself, and that's wonderful. It can be return tourism travel months or years later. It can be innovation, it can be training, it can be mentoring. It can be a lot of things. And I'll give you one example that I came across. Al Britton, who leads the chemistry department at CBU, I was speaking with just a couple of days ago, and he hosts a very small international conference on environmental research that he's doing on identifying toxins and other things in water around the world. And he hosts a small conference at CBU every year, but he uses it as a vehicle to attract students that are now studying at CBU. He has visiting professors who are doing research in CBU, and he is trying to find ways to connect that kind of thinking and research to the local community, to local businesses, to create business opportunities. So to me, it can be a different thing to every community across this province. The point is that we are attracting people from all around the world, and then it's up to us on how we work together to make sure that we identify what's important and what's unique about your community. It's going to be different here than it may be in the Valley, than it may be in Cape Breton. But let's make sure that we do that, and let's make sure that we work together to make sure that we can create and identify benefits and make sure we extract those benefits. This is the people business, and once you connect people, then there's a lot of potential. And so when I talk about benefits, in my view, it goes far beyond the things that we're measuring today. And I would say 10 years from now, we're going to be measuring a lot of other things about this business than we are today. And if there's one thing that we are very good at in Nova Scotia compared to any province across this country, I think, is how we interact with people and how we make people feel at home and how we welcome them. And I think here's a chance for us to really lever that natural skill that we have and to create some real economic development as a result. So it all comes down to how we work together. It's not just the center, it's not just a building, it really comes down to how we work as Nova Scotians. So, thank you.
Yeah. So it's kind of moving into like, okay, how would we like to now interact with the Nova Centre and the Convention Centre? What is the benefit we can see based upon that information that's given to us just there, based upon our own experience of living in this place? What is the kind of benefit that we could see this building, this Convention Centre have in Truro? So the way we've structured this is there's three kind of breakout groups to work with. So there's showcasing Nova Scotia, which is a lot around tourism, which Stephen is going to be hosting. There's our culture and heritage, which I'm going to be hosting, and I'm excited to do that. I'm a musician and poet as well as running processes like this. And then there's helping businesses grow, which Scott's going to be running. And so I imagine we'll have Stephen there, myself there, and Scott at this table. We're going to be working with a very simple process just to help us capture the information out of this. So as much as possible, we're trying to design formats that support us gathering and working with the information after these events, so we don't just end up with a massive hodgepodge that we have to go through and then decipher, right? So what we've got here, so the conversation will start with just a little introduction from myself, Scott or Stephen, and then it will move into, so what are some of the perspectives, what are some of the opinions we have at the table? That will then move us into, so based on the kind of perspectives we have here, what would most make a difference? What would really transform or advance or accelerate this so it could begin to work? And then finally on the right-hand side, there's a series of posters which is really around what is most important that decision makers hear from our conversations today. And as much as possible, we'd like this to get really, really concrete. So if we're talking about what's going to most make a difference is partnership between all kinds of different organizations in our region so they can actually position themselves in a Nova Centre in a compelling and interesting way, what's going to make what mechanisms are going to support those partnerships happening? Is that a funding platform? Is that so what do we need to have in place? Policies, partnerships, strategies, and what needs to be put in place to enable and accelerate the benefit that this building can have? As concrete as we can get, the better it is for us. Just a few things, 3 kind of principles as you go into this. So one is listen to learn. We're not hosting these conversations so everybody can agree. We're hosting these conversations so we can hear as many perspectives as possible, which hopefully means you have people at your table who disagree. And if they disagree, there's probably something to learn. So like, if we can be listening to learning rather than debate about who's right and wrong, then we're actually going to be getting the level and diversity of information that we need to help this building, all right? Speak from experience as much as possible. Speak from what's true from your own experience in life, rather than throwing things out there that sound like a really good idea, but I have no real idea if they work at all because I've never had any kind of experience of that. So please bring your real experience into these conversations. And then lastly, this is also important for us, please notice the patterns. What's coming up again and again and again from the conversations you've had today as you go into the conversations this afternoon? Because what we're trying to seek out here is not the loudest, most articulate, persuasive voice. What we're trying to find is something that's more reflective of public opinion, a collective voice in a room. And that's often found in the patterns, the things that recur, because they come from more than one person. They come from many directions and many perspectives, whether that's a Chamber of Commerce, whether that's a tourism organisation, whether that's someone that just lives in Truro. It's coming from all of those directions. We're hitting something that we know is going to have a benefit. All right? So please listen and notice the patterns and make sure they get captured. Super. So there'll be one of these templates put on each table. Could we just do a very brief little intro? So Scott, we'll start. Oh yeah, the law of 2 feet. Sorry, I almost forgot. The law of 2 feet is only one law while we're working. If you find yourself in a conversation where you're not learning or contributing, please stand up and go to one where you might learn and contribute something. So if you sit down with me here and you're like, no, this isn't really what I want to be talking about, or this isn't what I thought we were going to be talking about, you have absolute freedom to go and stand up and be somewhere where it's useful for you, where you can contribute something. You know, the last thing we want is people tapping their fingers and waiting for the conversation to end. That is terrible for the person hosting it and terrible for the person participating in it. So please stand up, go somewhere where you feel you can be helpful. Great, Scott, so you're over here. Could you just give a very little, this is what we're going to be talking about, 30 seconds?
Sure. It's all about growing business, and it goes back again to, in my view, how do we turn the 800-person conference into the 1,200, into the 1,500? It's a full court press. It's a team activity. We got to get the most out of this business we attract, and then when we get them here, we have to start finding ways to introduce and create other business opportunities while they're here and extract them while they're here. So.
Brilliant. And Rachel will be working with Scott to capture some of the outputs. I'm going to be over here, which is around culture and heritage. So how can our culture and heritage be made visible in this building? How can the building, as you enter it and walk through it, be an education in the culture and heritage of Nova Scotia? How does it reflect it, and how does it make it visible? And how can it generate economic opportunity for musicians from all over the province, for example? How does it begin to do that? So I'll be over here, and then Stephen will be here.
Okay. So just quickly, I guess, how do we use that? The convention center, public space, and other opportunities around the center to inspire people to go out and visit other parts of the province. And as a public space, it's going to be very engaging, so it won't be just convention visitors that will be exposed to whatever experiences in the center. So it's an opportunity to inspire Halifax residents as well as outside convention buildings. And then there's the partnerships. I think we might talk a bit more about the partnership opportunity in that terms.
Brilliant. So there'll be 30-35 minutes to sit down and dig into these. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Scott, Tim, Stephen, go wherever you would feel you could be most useful and learn the most.
Half-house room, or think about the 5 cents room, opportunities
We talked about it can't be a one-off message, like the impression that people get in the center can't be a one-off, it has to build on it.
Great, I hope those were fruitful conversations. I seem to be still whispering, so
Maybe we could just hear really briefly, just from Scott and Stephen and myself, just like, you know, again, a 30-second little, like, yeah?
Yeah.
Why not?
Sure. We started talking about communication. That's what often it comes down to. So many issues or problems these days come down to that not happening properly. So it's all about maybe collectively understanding what opportunity we have in front of us and make sure that we're communicating amongst ourselves as Nova Scotians and make sure we're taking full advantage of the opportunities. So that was a big part of it. We talked about promoting conventions early so that Nova Scotians and business sectors understood what potential might be available to them, but maybe several years in advance versus the week before. Starting community conversations so that folks in the Truro area might understand that there is a possible connect with this development, and if it can happen at even a lower level and we can continue to kind of support that, then it could grow to a louder roar at some point, hopefully, and more return. Definitely local products, and the others to celebrate celebrate our successes and talk about some of the successes and what we're good at here.
We had stuff about like getting the convention centre above ground came up. We also, I think the biggest things were really about the public space has to have some kind of like interactive feature or map there that allows you to access Nova Scotia. So you look at it and you hit the button and then a video comes up as you cross the bridge into Nova Scotia, or you hit a button and a video comes up of Joggins Park, or you but that also turns into a place of point of sale. So like you could go there and then you find a hotel near there and bang, you book your hotel or you book your vacation package or you order your case of wine from Grand Pré or whatever it is. But that you've got something in there that's interactive, that supports Nova Scotians and other tourists getting to other parts of the province, but acts as point of sale. I thought that was great. So you could be going in there and buying your tickets for Four Colours up in Cape Breton for the concert, or you could be going in there as a tourist and finding places to go and things to do across. But the idea was that it has to be large enough to feel interactive. If it's a little kiosk this big and that's not what we're looking for. That would not be effective. We're looking for something big, interactive. It's a feature, and it, you get people's emotions engaged, and you get them to spend their money. Steve.
All right, I guess kind of complementary to what came up at the other tables, but give visitors to the center an opportunity to sample the full Nova Scotia experience through as many senses as possible, so food, music, visually. So that's really important, and that'll help to inspire people to experience the entire province. A bit about building on what Joyce had said earlier, the message or the experience that comes out of the Nova Centre needs to be complementary. It needs to build on other messages that are being delivered to visitors and residents about the Nova Scotia experience. So just consistent branding has to fit into the tourism strategy and so on. So that's a big opportunity. A network, build a network or understand the network in terms of information that's perhaps not being shared currently in terms of convention and hosting opportunities that perhaps are not leaving Halifax or not meeting in Halifax because of conflicts or whatever, or it's just not the right fit. Make sure that other convention centers throughout the province have an opportunity to make their case to host those events and those meetings. Okay, Dennis.
That's great.
Perfect.
Thank you. So, before we go,
all of this will be developed into a document that will be available for download on the site. If you've got your email on this list, it will be sent to you, or you'll be able to send a link in which you can download it. So it's all be up online. There'll also be the video stream up online, so you can revisit this or have other people revisit it if they wanted to see any of the presentations that have been shown today. That'll be available online. So you're going to get outputs from this, and then if you want to show others, they'll be able to access any of that information as well.
Will that go for all 12 sessions?
Absolutely, yeah. So all the sessions that have been done already are up online. And of course you can access sessions if you're not there by coming and watching the live streaming for any of the sessions in Halifax, for example.
So before we go, we're going to take just 2 minutes and turn to your neighbor. Think about what was important for you today in the conversations you've had or what you learned from the speakers. What is it that stands out for you? What was important today?
and part of this is about helping us learn how to do this well. So we want to understand what was important for you today so we can continue to build in the things that are working as we continue to do future sessions. So please take a couple of moments. What was important? What worked really well? Just wanted to give a thumbs up to it.
Well, for me, this process, if it's implemented and acted upon,
I'd love to just hear a couple insights or what was important for you today. You could share that and then you can be on your way. Anyone?
Well, for me, if this process is the way that the Nova Centre will work, what a beautiful day. I mean, this was handled very professionally, but it seemed like it was taking everyone's interest into account. And that's what creating big projects mean. You know, it can't be centered. It has to be able to be diverse and to think of other people. So I say kudos to the Nova Centre. And I wish the best of luck regardless, you know, of anything. I think it's going to be great for the economy. I think it's going to be great for the province. And I think if everyone in every department works together, Digby Pines can benefit, Sydney can benefit, Bridgewater can benefit. It's unlimited.
Any other thoughts from across the room just before we close? What was important today? What worked well for you?
What didn't work?
They always say, the old saying goes that 2 heads are better than 1. But 12 times all those heads, it'll be beautiful.
Right. The more people we get, the smarter we get. As long as we got a process so they can talk to each other.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it.
Just a question. When you publicize these gatherings, were there specific invitations given to, say, the RDAs or the municipalities?
Yes.
I'm really disappointed here today that we don't have a single councillor, town staff person, county staff person, RDA person. We have the chamber guy coming, but that's really disappointing from our end, and that's not your.
No, invites went out. There's posters all over the town. It was on the news this morning.
Yeah,
there's been articles from Sydney and from New Glasgow summarizing up the previous events to build credibility for the future ones. So we feel like we've been as diligent as we can in terms of making it visible. And then we have to let go and work with whoever turns up.
Yeah. Well, and as I
so thanks for coming.
I'm not a big fan of the public expenditure here, and you know, I'm still. I see the case on both sides, but I really appreciate the time and effort that the developer and the convention center people have taken in expanding the public engagement component, but also just physically taking the time to be here. Because I know there are lots of other places to be, I'm sure. So that really helps. Thank you.
Great. I'm not cutting anyone off. Great. Just so you have a heads up of what's coming, these are the dates and the places. The last 3 are in Halifax. Feel free to join us for any of these or join us online. And here's how you can follow it. If you ever want to get hold of us, you can go there. There's a feedback page on the website. So if things come to you that are particular, you know, if you lie in bed tonight and you're like, wish I'd said that, go to the website, there's a feedback page. Please enter your insights in on there and just let us know that you were at this session and were, you know, from Truro, and then we can integrate that into part of the pieces that come from the provincial engagements rather than it being caught up in the larger body of information that we're putting out. So that's the invitation there.
Again, Anna Janelle will play us out.
Beautiful music today.
Enjoy the rest of
From Brooksfield, Nova Scotia.
Brooksfield, Nova Scotia. Joe, any final words just before we finish?
No, I just want to thank everyone for coming. And every time we get together with a group, we see the layering is happening. We're hearing some of the same thing. Yet we hear some things that are different. There's something that will add and make this project better. As the gentleman said, the more heads we have, the better we believe this project will be. And because of these sessions, I think this project will be a better project. And I believe we're starting to hear that we can start to work together as a group from one end of the province to the next. We've held now 5, 6 sessions, and you can feel that everybody wants to work together, and they feel that we can be better together. And if we can get along that road, I think we would achieve a big success. So thanks for coming, and we'll be hopefully seeing you at some of the other sessions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.